not enabled. Really bad if we...
You should enable them.
No, that would be the worst thing to do in a race. Alright, so this race is about to begin in 5 seconds.
Good luck. I'm not going to say have fun because, you know, there's no fun to be had. Yeah. But good luck. My timer started. And I hit a box.
Aw. Alright, so welcome to Defunct All Collectibles. I'm Celestics.
I'm Grimelios, and I'm casually going out of bounds.
Exactly. This is exactly how all speedruns start. You just go out of bounds.
This has to be the fastest out of bounds in a speedrun.
Exactly.
Like, it's like 4 seconds.
Okay, so welcome to All Collectibles, where we try our hand in order to collect 40 golden little medallions that you're going to see right here. Alright, so that's one. Pretty sure Grim got that same one as well.
Right on your tail.
Exactly. So Grim, what is this game about?
This game is called Defunct. It's this 3D indie platform where you play as this robot with a broken engine. So you start the game in... Oh god, that was weird. You start the game in this mothership, and from a story perspective, there's not too much to say. You just sort of go out of your way to try to go get your engine repaired. But spoiler alert, something bad is going to happen, and we're going to have to try to make our way back onto the ship. I'll let you talk about the category quickly before we jump into mechanics.
Yeah, so the category is all collectibles. Like I said, we have to go collect all 40 of these golden little medallions, and yeah, that's pretty much it. They're going to be scattered all around the different worlds, and for the most part, we actually want to get out of the ship as fast as possible, because normally the game would expect you to try to go up the chute, but we already know that that's futile, and we're not going to be able to complete the category at all if we did that, so we just like completely run out of it. Bye-bye, mothership. That's it.
So I'll say a few words about the mechanics then. As we mentioned, the robot's engine is broken, so you can barely move by your own power. Instead, we'll be getting the vast majority of our speed by, at least for the time being, by gravitating down slopes, where you can hold a button. I'm playing on controller and Celestics is playing on keyboard, and you can sort of pull yourself down. So you want to gravitate down slopes in order to keep speed, and then conversely, you want to try to, as much as possible, avoid gravitating up slopes, which, as you would expect, kills your speed. And I'll let you talk about magnetize, but maybe I should let you focus for the skip that we're about to do.
That's all good, don't worry about that. Okay, so magnetize is an ability that we have that allows us to do 2 different things. So number 1 is that allows us to, well, first of all, you're going to see us use magnetize if you see this little blue like sort of aura around our character's wheels. Magnetize allows us to stick to grounds if we hold on to it, or it allows us to, if the ground is made out of metal, stick onto it. So you can be like Spider-Man and like sort of hang on upside down. Now for the most part, we're not going to be using magnetize, because one thing is magnetize usually limits your speed or your ability to go forward horizontally. So you're only going to see us use it very few times during the run when it's utterly necessary. But other than that, like, you'll be seeing us use gravitate for the most part because we want to go fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, magnetize is most useful as a skill to just gain control, although we will be using it sort of for its intended purpose to actually go upside down a few times. What I'm about to do here is just bounce on a bouncy pad. Bouncy pads work about the way you'd expect, where the faster, I guess, the faster you hit the bouncy pad downward, the more boost you get going back up. Alright, I almost missed something, but we're fine. There are these little orbs throughout the world, and every time you touch one of these orbs, it gives you a small one-time speed boost. And so we'll be hitting those as much as possible. That's going to be a major source of speed throughout the run.
Okay, one thing you're going to be noticing us do a lot, and I'm going to first talk about respawning. Those little blue pillars of light that you're seeing everywhere are known as checkpoints. And we can press a button in order to respawn at that point whenever we want, assuming that that is our last, most recently activated checkpoint. We do this for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that it allows us to get back on the track of finishing the actual game if we veer off course, because in all collectibles, there are certain collectibles that we need to go off the beaten path in order to get. The second one is that if we are behind a checkpoint that we've activated, what's up?
I hit a tree branch, and I did not have a good time doing so.
Yeah, so so the second reason is that when we activate one of these checkpoints, which we can reset in order to get ourselves immediately warped to it. And the second thing is we can actually give ourselves a boost of speed doing so. Because the game is a little bit lenient in the fact that like whenever you go on a checkpoint or like come out of a checkpoint, gate, you are allowed to give yourself a burst of speed as soon as you go outside of that area. So you're going to be seeing us do that quite a bit during the run.
Right, and it's important to note that the amount of boost that you get from the checkpoints is variable depending on the checkpoint. So generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, if you're in a big open area, you'll usually get more boost, whereas if you're in a smaller, more confined area, it gives you less because it figures that you need less. And so whether or not we reset is often dependent on, maybe sometimes it's faster to reset and use the boost, sometimes it's faster to just rely on the speed we already have. It just depends on the checkpoint. It is consistent, there's no RNG or anything, which is nice.
Alright, so one thing that I should mention that coming up is that these little red capsules that you've been seeing sort of like before in the run, one of them was actually found earlier in this stage. They're known as power cells. Normally you use them and you activate them by getting next to them in order to get certain things to happen. So for example, one of them blew up a fan so that we can keep going on. This next one that's coming up, there are actually these three red power cells which you see in the environment here. We need to activate all three in order to open a gate at the back of this stage, which allows us to clear it. But instead, what we can do is we can use gravitization in order to get enough speed, take this ramp, which gives us a little bit of height, come back down on this little hill, and jump straight over this wall. And that's one of the...
as well.
Oh, nice. All right. So yeah, so first try is definitely, this is one of the easier ones. There is a harder one coming up later in the run, but for the most part, you're going to be seeing us ignore these red power cells, save for one stage in the game.
Mm-hmm. And that'll take us right into Valley. Valley is one of the most fun areas of the game, not even just casually, but even from a speedrunning perspective, because it's mostly downhill. You just get to kind of cruise along at near maximum speed, holding gravitize. There are these grind rails, which we haven't mentioned. Grind rails, when you touch them, ordinarily increase your speed, and they just, carry you along the grind rail as you'd probably expect. There are some things to be careful of with grind rails. Specifically, there are actually some bugs present in the game where if you hit a grind rail dead on center, rather than accelerating you, it actually tends to just stop you in your tracks. It can even turn you around in the worst case scenario, but it's very, very easy to avoid if you just hit the grind rail with a little bit of an angle as opposed to head on.
Yep. So that collectible you just saw us grab, in particular, that's one of the riskiest collectibles to get in this run. If you miss that one, you have to restart the entire stage, and that loses you about a minute and a half. Mm-hmm. But it's so easy that usually it's a very low risk in missing it, as long as you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Sort of as a general note, I'd say this run is interesting because it is one of the only speed games I've ever played where you spend most of your run not really pressing anything. Again, the robot has very, very poor ability to accelerate on its own. So usually it's like gain a bunch of speed through gravitizing down hills, or maybe through grabbing boost orbs or something like that, maybe boosting off a checkpoint. You jump. By the way, have we mentioned the friction thing?
Oh yeah, that's right. We should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
So you're going to be noticing that... Yeah, I can take this one. So you'll be noticing that we're actually going on sort of like smaller slopes. We're going to be, or not slopes, but more like flat land. You're going to be noticing us jumping a lot while we're moving at maximum speed, because while we're on the ground, we are subject to friction, and that slows us down like quite a bit. And you're going to be seeing that more so in this stage right now, because we're going to be given something called, well, it's called energy juice in the game, but we call it Jesus juice. Grim would like to talk about that.
Sure, so, oh god, this could be a problem. We'll find out. Anyway, energy juice, or Jesus juice, is this substance that actually finally lets us do a little bit of boosting on our own. If you look at the sort of top left of the robot, there's this bar that appears, and we can slowly drain it. Using Jesus Juice does not give you as much of a boost as hitting a grind rail or grabbing a boost orb or anything like that. What it is primarily useful for is sort of capping at your maximum speed. As Celestics mentioned, when you're in the air, you don't lose any speed because there's no air friction, there's only friction on the ground. So a lot of times you'll sort of see this pattern where we use a bit of boost just as we jump, and then save it while we're in the air. Because there is a maximum speed in this game, it's something around 80 units. I don't know what units, but it's 80 units. And so if we're already traveling at 80 units and we're, burning through our boost, it doesn't really do anything for us. So we'll be trying to use it rather judiciously throughout the run. to try to cap out our speed as much as possible. And with that, we should talk about Junkyard.
Alright, so I actually missed first cycle, but you can talk about the... So one thing you might have noticed us both doing earlier was a checkpoint overload. So at some point during the dawn sort of split, or sort of stage, you may have noticed that we were constantly respawning, and the reason why we do this is because there's a very small window at which you load in this entire stage, known as Junkyard, by which you can actually trick the game into thinking that your current checkpoint is actually the first checkpoint in the entire stage. And this is the reason why this is the case, just only for the stage, is because Junkyard's first checkpoint in particular activates based on a radius around its sort of like spawn point, and luckily that radius actually overlaps with where we start respawning like a ton. So that really much talks about how this stage works. It allows us to get access to that checkpoint immediately, which pretty much skips an entire 20 seconds trek up that mountain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing you're also going to be noticing is that... Oh man, don't mess that up. Oh no, please! Okay.
Oh god, what happened?
No, we're good. I almost fell into the little lake. So one thing you're going to be noticing is that, remember when I told you that there's going to be one section of the game where we do have to collect all of these red power cells? This is the only section that we can do that. Grim, would you like to explain why?
Sure, because we need the power cells to open a giant trapdoor in the middle. Well, that's why you need to get the power cells. It's actually possible to clip through it. It's called the Junkyard skip. But doing so is a very, very difficult trick, and I'm not even sure if it would save time. It wouldn't be much, and so it's just very, very risky, given that you have to collect all the collectibles. By the way, we usually call them cells, but when we say cells, it's sort of interchangeable with the word collectible. Since you have to collect all the cells in the area, it sort of makes more sense just to sort of do the section in the intended way. So that's why we have to go grab all of those things.
Alright, so a little bit of a camera glitch right there with the beginning of Back on Track, which you might have saw earlier. The reason why that has happened is because that little cutscene where you see us falling out of that pipe, we can usually try to respawn in order to get straight to the first checkpoint and start moving along, but that cutscene takes a little bit of time. So instead what we do is we pause and respawn directly from the menu, since that can be instantaneous.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm, I think, just barely ahead of you. A lot of things could happen if I bonk into one wall that I didn't intend to. It can really mess up my speed, but in my opinion, this is one of the most fun sections of the run. And you can sort of hear it emphasized by the music, which becomes very, very lively. I think it's a nice touch from a design perspective. I call this section the Tunnel of Love just because it's a tunnel, even though Celestics thinks that name is silly.
It's a silly name, man. What are you loving? No, just kidding.
Tunnel,
it actually does kind of make sense. If you think, I missed the collectible. Cool.
Oh no!
Right.
Oh no! Anyway, this area is very, very fun. I just get to hold magnetize that I make sure I stick to ceilings, and I just get to cruise along at pretty much constant maximum speed, picking up all of these boost orbs. I don't have to deal with crazy jumps and, you know, skips and glitches and out of bounds. I just get to cruise along. And then you get to take your speed and use it to try to do a special little trick. I'm going to ramp up off a small slope and then use it to grab a collectible. This collectible up here is very, very sort of notorious. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think that would be a good way. I think infamous is better.
It's infamous. It's infamous because most of the hitboxes in this game when it comes to picking up collectibles are pretty generous. So you don't actually have to physically touch the thing. You just sort of get close. And that's good enough. That one, though, is sort of the opposite. You have to physically touch that collectible in order to get it. It's very, very precise. And if you miss it, it's rather costly. You have to go back a pretty long way. But I'm an Oasis here. How are you doing? I can talk about the Oasis skip coming up.
Yeah, go for it. I'm actually about to hit as well.
Okay, so the Oasis skip is similar to the Forest skip. Remember that Celestics mentioned that it won't be the only skip like it in the run. I'm meant to go around this whole area, grab a whole bunch of cells, and then open a gate, but I'm not going to do any of that. Instead, I'm going to bounce off that bouncy pad in a rather precise way and use up all of my boost in order to fly way up over the gates. I think that's the single coolest trick in the run. It's sort of like the most mind-blowing if you've never seen this game before, because you know it's this massive jump that you're doing. And with that, I'm sort of trying to chase after the ship. Remember that the story of this game is not exactly complex, but my engine is broken and I fell out of the ship, so now I'm trying to get back to it. You can see it off in the distance there, and I'm racing towards it to try to catch up. Maybe I'll be able to, maybe I won't. Just kidding. I know what the answer to that question is. I will not be able to catch it, and we're going to go now to another area called Rock Bottom. Would you like to say a few words about Rock Bottom?
So I'm just catching up right here, trying to get to Rock Bottom as well. Rock Bottom is the hardest stage in the entire run. It's not hard because it's... Well, actually it is hard just for that too. The reason why it's hard is because you're never going to be at maximum speed while you're in that area. It is pretty much near impossible to do so. And so pretty much the moral of the story is any speed gain that you get or speed deficit that you sort of take on as a penalty is super significant in this part. This is easily one of the splits that has the most significant changes in sort of deviations in sort of time, because every sort of like tick of the game where you are holding down gravitate on an upwards moving slope, or even like not even holding it down on a downwards moving slope, is extra speed that you're not adding to your little robot here.
You really do need to fight for every single ounce of speed. If you get enough of it, you can make your way over this gap, which you're supposed to fall in. And then I'm going to intentionally reset to this checkpoint and turn around, because there's a collectible down there I need. But the game's intended route here is that you're meant to fall down here and then have to work your way all the way around this giant sort of circuitous area, and then work your way up top where I am now. But it is possible to drop down and grab the collectible without activating the checkpoint. It's very important that you do that. And if you do, you can just go ahead and reset right back up top, and it saves on the order of 2 minutes. It's a pretty massive skip.
Yep, I actually kind of feel bad for developers in this one because we skip it entirely. Actually, it's a pretty cool puzzle at the end too.
That can probably be said about most speedruns. That you just sort of skip all their, careful design and planning, sequence break everything.
So one little nit I'll make here. Yeah, so we're about to end this part of the run and head into the last stage, which is Crash Site. Crash Site is one of the more calmer points in terms of ending a speed run. There's only one little pain zone that we have to get through, and I'm pretty sure Grim is going to be at it closer than I am. So Grim, if you would like to talk about that one.
Just a hair closer, sure. Most of the hard parts of the run are complete. I just get to cruise through this section, as always, trying to gravitate and use my energies, or Jesus juice, appropriately. But there's one final boss of this game, and that's a railing. Most of the railings in this game, if you'll notice, have actually been extremely generous in terms of their hitboxes. You can sort of hit them from the side or whatever, and you tend to just latch onto it no problem. That's not the case with this one. There's a collectible on a railing, the very last one in the run, and unfortunately, this railing also happens to be by far the most finicky. You have to hit it pretty precisely. Got it, thank God. If you miss that, it's also very costly because you have to reset back to a checkpoint that's pretty far away. Plus, yeah, there's, the blow to your self-esteem for missing it near the end of the run. But with this, the game goes into slow-mo. I can see my final target. Time is going to be coming up very, very soon on this run. I just have to sort of boost along, try to not fall in a pit. That would be very, very unfortunate. And then that'll be the run. It's actually, for as fast as this run appears, I actually consider it to be a pretty relaxed speed run. I think it's very, very fun.
Just finishing up here as well. So some things to note, sort of like the run estimates and sort of the risks of completing the run. Alright, first let's do this. Okay, so some things to note about the run itself.
I got a 34-second PB.
Yo, congrats.
18:22.
Oh, holy moly.
34-second PB, wow. That was.
Okay, so this time that you're going to see at the bottom of my screen is also going to look like a PB. It's actually not a PB, but it's actually pretty damn close. So one of the things that we should say about this run, as forgiving as the mechanics of the game sound, it actually even gives you a marker for where you're going to land if you're in the air, which is great. For all that being said, it is a safe run. We can consistently get under 20 minutes. 21 if we're like really unsure about it, but 20 minutes is generally a good thing to look at. That being said, the differential between sort of like our PBs, which is like low 18s, all the way up to 20 minutes, the reason for that minute and 20 or minute and 30-second differential is because every single major skip that we kind of fail, because it is very easy to fail these skips too, it can cost us anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds each. But for the most part, they usually only ever happen once, so you only get that counted against you once. The second thing is that for the most part, we can respawn. So the game's design is made so that the modularization of the stages is very, very easy to get started back up again. So if there's any time loss at all, it's usually only going to happen once and that's it. We don't have to keep banging our heads against the strat or to get it to work. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else to say?
No, you about covered it. I think a 20 to 1 minute estimate is pretty safe, but this is all collectibles. That's about it.
Yeah.
Nice race.
All right. So yeah, that was a pretty good race. Thanks for watching.